how do you envision the future pharmacist 5 to 10 years down the road? As a pharmacist yourself, would love to hear your vision on that.
I think that there's a greater separation from the pharmacist and the dispensary. And I'm not sure if that means the pharmacist is actually out of the pharmacy themselves,
right,
or in an office within the same building. But I certainly see the pharmacist as a little more hands-on with the patient as opposed to hands-on with the drug, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Right. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Jason. I guess to kind of wrap it all up, and you coming from a digital health space, especially, how do you describe the future of digital health tech? You have already alluded to a little bit, but, would love to kind of hear some concluding thoughts on that as well from you.
Yeah, digital health is definitely interesting because we saw it evolve back in the early days. There's Maple, and that was such a cool thing, and you can just see doctors now. And then there's some pharmacy innovation that you can see pharmacists now. But digital health, I think, it's really going to be, in my mind, it would ideally be a one-stop shop where, you can basically, it's almost like a Maple in a way, but it's it'll incorporate pharmacy services and say, okay, do you want, say this array of pharmacy services, and we're going to have a way for maybe to connect all of these independent stores, right? Because we know chain pharmacies, they have their own sort of, digital health technologies in place. And so that independents are kind of left on the side to kind of fend for themselves and say, hey, well, what can I do for my digital health, right? So exactly. I think if we can amass all of these independents together and provide them, this solution that makes their life easy to advertise their digital health technologies, then that I think would be in the horizon for the future for them. And I think many companies are already on that. They're trying to bring that vision to light, and that's fantastic. I'm happy to be kind of in the mix of those companies trying to push this out, and just wouldn't it be fantastic to just pick up your phone and say, hey, this is a pharmacy, there it is, this is all the independents, and you have it all at your fingertips, and these pharmacies choose what they want to offer. This is a refill, is it a minor ailment,
exactly,
an appointment, I really do believe that that's coming. It's just a matter of when and how, right?
I agree. I think we're in the very early stages of innovation, especially in the digital pharmacy sector and digital health tech. So I think the opportunities to innovate are limitless at this point in time. And so I think everyone, if you have a vision, just making sure. I think we just do not want to fall into the traps of reinventing the wheel every single time. So if there are any opportunities where we can bring synergies together, I think that's, that would help, I think, even the system as a whole, because the last thing you want is duplicate records being created at multiple points where the patient touches the healthcare system, right? So, but I'm really optimistic, just like you are. And I'm really very conversation. I always ask these questions to my guests because I always want to pick your brain in terms of, how do you describe the future of pharmacy in the next 5 years?
I think it's an exciting time, but it very much depends on what we do and what we're able, the change that we're able to make. I think there's always two sides to it. There's the patient side and there's the pharmacist side. We talked a lot about the pharmacist side and the changes that pharmacists are making, but we haven't really touched upon the patient side. And I think the patient side is really what also drives transformation. And we see now in 2022 that there's such a normal for all businesses to have a digital presence. I think we see that in banking. We see that in restaurants. Now, when you go to a restaurant, do you call them? No, you go to their open table or whatever, you make a reservation or put yourself on the wait list. Even when I walk in, you put yourself on a wait list, right? That's QR codes. That's all normalized, and expectation is there now for what patients and individuals expect of the businesses that they frequent. And so I think there's a huge opportunity here for pharmacies to step up to this new expectation and being able to leverage some of these digital channels to drive and diversify their revenue away from kind of purely focusing on dispensing, being able to look at, say, what we talked about earlier, like online delivery platforms, whether or payment systems for out-of-pocket clinical services that are being done, and really being able to engage their patients in that digital landscape by having that digital front door. I think we also are seeing a change, and we do have to press for this change, where there's that behavior change of people, instead of, calling a pharmacy as the first line to do anything. And we know how much that hinders the workflow and how disruptive it could be. Can we funnel, this interest to other ways to present that information, action on that information, without just purely like patient to pharmacy phone call for anything that's needed? And for example, like when we look at minor ailments coming up in Ontario, the patient demographic for minor ailments is going to be quite different than, a regular patient demographic for the most frequent service, like a flu shot, right? And so when we look at this age demographic, how do they expect to get information? How do they expect to get care? What do they value? And so can we think about new ways to connect and be there for these people in the way that they're more used to being connected? And so I think that's definitely the direction for patients that we're seeing the demand. And I look forward to that transformation happening more and more from the pharmacy side and in landing to that digital model. I think on top of that, though, as well, you see the future kind of driving towards a hybrid model. I don't think there will, for pharmacy, there'll ever be kind of, you have your venture-backed online pharmacies that are focused on cost and convenience, but I truly believe that the future of pharmacy is focused on how can we best leverage the physical brick and mortar stores that are truly community health hubs for patients, where especially in rural communities where there is no doctor's office for many kilometers, this is the place where people go to get care. So how can we build on top of that and not see things as so black and white as digital or physical? How can we really build that hybrid model to optimize for the things that can be digitized or automated, but then focus on the areas, especially when it comes to chronic disease management, that we do best at, that pharmacies can really diversify their revenue in? And I think that's the real opportunity for pharmacies that can really leverage this hybrid model, bring in that tech stack that works for this new wave of patient behavior and expectations, as well as really diversifying their revenue away from just dispensing, because we see consolidation of players within the pharmacy ecosystem. We see huge amounts of money being put into vertical distribution of drugs when it comes to online pharmacy players. So it's going to be very hard for your independent pharmacy to compete with these Goliaths. And so where is the opportunity? Where can especially independent pharmacies drive their value? It's really in looking at this change that we're seeing and adapting to that and being open to bring in new tools to change the way they work, and really innovating and exploring and coloring a little bit outside of the lines, because that's when we can further define or make that box bigger by showing how things can change. And that's really how we convince government and reimbursement to provide us compensation for a lot of these things as well.
Absolutely. Wow. You've painted a beautiful future. Thank you for that. And you kind of answered my other question, which was around, the future of digital health tech, I guess, especially in the pharmacy industry. And I'm super excited to, hear a few thoughts of yours on that as well. Like if you want to build on any of that.
I think for sure. I think right now a lot of virtual healthcare is built around convenience.
Yes.
It's see a doctor in 2 hours or less. But the shift that we're starting to see in the US mostly, but hopefully we'll see here more, is it's less about convenience and about being the best service available.
Yes.
Because if everyone can say that they're convenient, like it's not special anymore. So the next stage, or like the next generation, is more specialized virtual care. You should come and use our service because we have the best doctors for your condition.
Right.
I think that is what's really interesting and fascinating to us. And if you can do a virtual meds check, is it necessarily better than an in-person meds check?
Yeah.
And I think there are ways to make it better,
yes,
or make it even better. And, I'm exploring those things right now. But I think you need that to really, really get to the next stage. So I think virtual care is going to be huge, but we're not in the current form that we see right now necessarily.
Right. I agree. Wow, what an optimistic future you've painted. Last question, because I always ask my guests this, because as a pharmacist, where is the future of pharmacy headed in the next 5 years? So how do you see the role changing?
Well, I think the 13 minor ailments, I think COVID probably fast forwarded a lot of things.
Yes.
Which, has COVID, of course, has bad, good thing, but one of them, it really fast forwarded us to realize, we do a lot. And we had already been doing a lot, but I think COVID allowed the rest of the community to see how much we actually do.
Yes.
I think that was probably, so it fast forwarded us in the minds of people, I think, because everybody was closed. Your family doctor was closed. Everybody was closed except for us.
Yes.
Right. So
agreed.
And I think that's huge. And so, as I mentioned about it fast forwarding us in the eyes of our patients, and I think in our own minds, I think we realized pharmacists were very what's the word? We don't toot our own horns. We're very quiet. We just put our head down and do the work. But I think in this last 2.5 years, it really put it straight in our own minds what a valuable team member we are.
Yes.
So I think if we can capitalize on this and keep moving forward, pharmacy with the minor ailments and things like that, being more autonomous and doing and managing things on our own, and taking those burdens off the family doc and off the healthcare system, I definitely see us more like that, almost having our standalone office like any physician would be.
Absolutely.
And working with the family physician to make sure this patient is taken care of, and so things don't fall through the cracks.
I agree. Well, thank you so much, Shirley. With that said, I'm going to wrap up this interview without forgetting our last question, which is, how do you see the future of pharmacy in the next 5 to 10 years?
Like pharmacist-led walk-in clinics of any design. I don't, it's like we saw a whole bunch in the news this week. Loblaws and Shoppers opened a few, and they looked really much like a clinic. And I was like, honestly, you could do that without building a clinic. You could probably just run it out of your counseling room. But either way, awesome.
Yes.
I see that. I see that in some of the paired and point of care testing. Like I see there being just this whole evolution there. I see people and this whole paradigm shift. Like we had 8 pharmacy students at our pharmacy this year.
Wow.
And they all kind of get the boundaries thing and the self-care thing. Like it's a whole new generation. And they've been like, I'm working half from home. I'm really stressed out. It's like, I gotta prepare myself. And I've had to look into these things because I'm anxious and not feeling like a normal human being. And I think that health coaching, it sometimes feels like it might not be a clinical practice, but I promise you it is. It's the framework that surrounds an incredibly satisfying clinical practice. And ultimately, I think that it's, there's something to be said for the development and the initiatives that are going on when it comes to vulnerable communities and vulnerable populations. I see collaborative health clinics that are harm reduction. You know, we've got very harm reduction in Saskatchewan here. So harm reduction clinics that I think that we can bring in those coaching and community things, the partnerships with nonprofit organizations and health authorities and pharmacies, right? Because I mean, as part of all of these programming, there's dispensables. So instead of that being an expense to a program, why can't it just be a partnership with the pharmacy?
Exactly.
Medi buses. I've got like a million ideas. And I just think, you know, we need to bring compassionate and effective healthcare to the crisis centers, and we need to make it wrap around and safe and include a meal and a warm place to, you know, write a resume or something. You know, it's all part and parcel. And I think that pharmacists are absolutely poised to make those partnerships. And I see now, having operated a pharmacy, just how important those partnerships could be to the sustainability of our brick and mortar spaces, where we do hire and we do employ pharmacy assistants from all walks of life and pharmacy technicians that are absolutely leading the change, and these incredible compassionate pharmacists that are going to they're gonna fix things, you know. And I'm a dreamer. But I think honestly, this whole health collapse and crisis that is pretty imminent, it's got to be at least something we can help with. But we just have to make a little bit of a shift in the role there. So you know, the innovation sector, the mechanics, you know, it's like we got a machine coming, you know, because it's going to just pack a whole bunch of stuff. But then really, truly, that's not replacing somebody. That's replacing totally like mind numbing, redundant stuff.
Exactly.
That is, you know, if you can make enough partnerships to invest in it, then wow, now we can actually go out to whatever community or whatever facility is getting just packed meds. And we get a chance to actually connect with them.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for painting such an optimistic and a bright future for our profession. Similar to you, I'm like super excited in terms of, you know, where we're heading. Thank you so much, Lindsay. And I think I cannot, let you go before I ask you the question that this podcast was created on, which is the future of pharmacy and, how you see pharmacists practicing over the next 5 to 10 years. I would love your insights as somebody who has seen both sides of the world and would love to see how you see the future of pharmacy and for pharmacists as well.
Yeah, I was actually speaking with someone who's only been practicing for a few years last week. And I warned him, I said, you know, the next few years in pharmacy are going to be a bit messy because we're growing, right? And growth is always challenging and it can be a bit messy. And so we're seeing minor ailments rolling out in Ontario as well as, British Columbia. And I think, was it Prince Edward Island or something is right? So I think that it's going to be challenging because there's going to be a lot of growth, and we do have a very serious situation with burnout that's happened, right, and been exacerbated. I am excited about the future, the next 5 or 10 years. I think that we really need to start utilizing and treating our pharmacy technicians better, and also utilizing them more, because that's going to allow us to move to more of a clinical place in pharmacy. I think that seeing pharmacies as health hubs, as centers, not just for information and medication, but centers for healthcare, is something I'm really excited about. And we see pharmacist clinics that are starting to open. And I also see this huge wave of digital healthcare and digital, just digital health in general. And so we have apps, we have, there's going to be direct to consumer. There already is direct to consumer tests. How is that going to play out for pharmacists? How will we stay on top of that? It's something I definitely want to address in the channel. So very exciting. I think that it's going to be a bit of a whirlwind. I'm thankful that we have new grads, PharmDs that are going to rise up and help us through this. So I think there's going to be as always with pharmacy, there's a lot of change, right? But I think that change is needed. And I think that if we are able to kind of grow through it and again, utilize pharmacy technicians more, Kristen Watt has done an incredible job of that. Keeping an eye on her, like, what's Kristen doing, right? And I know you had her on the channel. Yes. It's an excellent interview. People should go and watch that. I shared that with our pharmacy group. So that's where I see it going. Definitely more clinical, definitely more digital. It's going to be a little bit messy, but we're going to grow in the process.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I mean, the future looks pretty bright to me, and every growth comes with its own set of growing pains, right?